Alright guys, welcome back to another video here. Doing something a little different. Got the Druid. I don't play Druid ever, but I like melee builds, so I was interested in checking out Rabies. So this is my spin on it. I've learned a couple things, did some research. It plays weird. I'll say that. It's not like any other melee build. You attack once and then you leave. So it's a very like it doesn't play like another melee build. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's interesting. Um, it's strong. Sheet damage is really high. There's a lot of weird options and gear that you don't normally use, like these venom grips. So let's just get into it. We'll do the Merc first. So this thing has lower resist on striking, so this is really good. This can break poison immunes. Conviction Aura doesn't break poison immunes, um, so you're not gonna ever use like Infinity. So there's only two choices. You either get this crossbow, which is very cheap, put it on an Act 1 Merc, or obviously you could also get the this thing, Hadriel's Hand. So this you could put on an Act 5 Merc, and that would be cool. It would be a little bit more pierce, but this is a very expensive sword, so wouldn't really consider that. Other gear here is just basic survival gear, same thing as always. Let's take a look at the skills. So interestingly enough, you max Poison Creeper, and I didn't know this, but you can summon up to 3 of them once you're for the hard points. So you get an additional for every 10 base levels, so that's cool. And then these guys put a big debuff on their targets that does minus 39 poison resist. So it's like another lower resist. So even if you don't have the pus spitter, you could still break most immunes just from your poison creepers hitting mobs, and they kind of hit in an AoE. So that's really cool. And they kind of do some damage too, like 12k poison damage is not nothing to sneeze at, right? So you max that, you get 1 in the rest of these things. I'll tell you why after. You max Rabies, and then Rabies has 3 synergies. So one is the Poison Creeper, one is the Lycanthropy, which buffs your werewolf form, and one is Feral Rage. So Feral Rage is a buff that you get kind of like Frenzy on the Barb, where you attack and you generate stacks, and then you get a buff. So it's a buff to your movement speed, and you get some attack or life steal as well, which doesn't matter for us because we don't do any kind of physical damage really. All we do is poison damage. And then once that's done, you max Werewolf just because you're in Werewolf. So maxing Werewolf gives you, some damage reduction and some other benefits and some more life, things like that. So it's pretty good build to go because it's kind of easy in terms of what's up. Then I just went down to Gust. You don't have to do this. You can't Gust when you're in Wolf form. But it might be useful to have if you want to do like Chaos Sanctuary and you're trying to get around quick. So that's an option. Cyclone Armor just doesn't last long enough, and you can't cast it in Werewolf form. So I don't recommend it. It's just not worth it to reapply it. And yeah, so you have a little bit of a setup when you go. Let's talk about Rabies though, because it's pretty different spell. So the way it works is you attack once, and it does the physical damage. So the top numbers are physical damage, right, which is nothing. And then the bottom number is the Rabies damage. So it's over 5 seconds, and then it spreads. So you hit one mob, and it goes to all the adjacent mobs and kind of like spreads through them like a wave. So it's really strong in that sense, but also very awkward because when you attack, it's not like you can stand there and attack and actually kill the mobs. Nothing changes. You're just reapplying the debuff. So you attack and then you run away. So you're never actually fighting. You're just kind of applying the debuff and running away. It kind of plays like a Sork does with Blizzard, where you cast Blizzard on the ground, or you cast Frozen Orb, and you just run around. So it's kind of interesting that way. It's got really high sheet damage, as you can see, right? Like 68k is what I've got. Like, that's crazy, right? But it's over 5 seconds. So you divide that by 5, and that's like somewhere around 10k damage, which is, still good. That's, 10 to 20k damage is where you want to be for most builds. So it's definitely there. Um, so yeah, let's look at the gear. Um, there's a couple guides out there, but I went with this gear just because it seemed the best to me. Having Elemental Pierce is very strong. So this weapon has 25 poison resist Pierce, which is insane. And it also has 3 to poison skills. So that's going to increase our Rabies damage by almost 10k and gives us significant Pierce. So this Pierce happens only if they're not immune. So if something's immune, this won't help you break immunities. The only thing that will is your debuff from your creepers and lower resist. Those are the only 2 things that can drop the immunes down. So once they're broken, this will lower it more. So even if something's not immune, it might have like 50% resist to poison. So this is gonna go through 25 of it. So it's very strong. And also, because we're attacking once and running away, the attack speed doesn't matter for this type of playstyle. It really doesn't. Because all you have to do is attack once, assuming you hit. So this weapon's perfectly fine. Now the only issue with it is that you can't get any sockets in it to put more faucets. So that's something to consider if you have if you're going like for a deep end game build and you've got lots of money. So you could look at something like a Plague Bear. There's some daggers as well and other things that have minus enemy poison resist that you might be able to slam sockets in and get some poison faucets going. But I think this item is basically free. Nobody wants it, and it does the job. Next is Bramble. So this is a classic. It's the highest like elemental mastery for poison on a chest, 30 to 50. It's quite a large range, and it is kind of expensive. Omsur is, almost, it's like two and a bit HR. So if you roll one of these and it's like 30, you're gonna be upset, because if you get a 4-socketed armor and put 4 perfect faucets in it, it's only 20%, but you also get 20 pierce. So it's almost the same amount of damage at the end of the day. So I don't know. Keep that in mind. I would try to just buy a Bramble that rolled well. I would not do them myself. But nonetheless, Bramble's great. It also gives you Thorn's Aura, which is kind of neat. Everything else is whatever, except for the life after each kill is really helpful for this build because we don't lifesteal or anything. Jalal's is just more skills here we're looking at, just a bunch of skills, and importantly, 5 mana after each kill. So that's another thing. This is how we regain our life and health. Mara's just because we want skills. Spirit Ward. Now this you want to try and slam and get tons of sockets and fill it with poison faucets. It also just gives you 2 to all skills, and it's like a source of all resist. Same with the Helm. Jalal's main, you probably want to try to get some sockets going. So I just got 2 there. Sorry about that. And you always want to do the best poison faucets you can find. So typically 5/5s. And I don't even have any left to put in. I've used them all. So yeah, like you really want to try and get the faucets in there. The Venom Hides are 15 the poison skill damage. This is insane. Like they're the best for sure. Like no contest. It's like 3 faucets. Then I just have 2 BK rings for 1 to all skills and some life. Arachnid's Mesh, same thing, 1 to all skills. And it gives you slows target by 20. So this will actually slow the targets down, which is pretty cool. And also gives you Venom, so you could apply Venom. I think that helps. Marowaks just cannot be frozen. There's really no boot option here that like does anything useful, so just take whatever you want. I would probably try to find like rare boots with magic find and maybe some other stuff. Slam cannot be frozen on something. And then Call to Arms lidless. Pretty standard. I tested the large charms, and having the plus shape-shifting skills scales better than the 3% poison. And we have a Torch and Annie, some all-res. You see we're capped on our resistances. We got a ton of health. I'm going to open this portal now. Excuse me here, I've got the flu, so give me 1 sec. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. So, there's a bit of a setup here. You want to buff yourself first, then you want to summon all your dudes. And because we're using Jalal's, we only get 1 spirit. If you're using the Spirit Keeper, you can get 2. So you want to use the Oak Sage just because it gives you health. And then for the another vine, I go with the corpse eating one, so it gives you the health back. And then you want to buff them. You see our health is a lot of health, 2,700. And it's not even optimized. I have way too much stuff in Dex and Strength here. So, and I'm going to re-go into Wolf form. So it's the highest level. So we got Feral Rage on the right because we want to get our buff going to give us movement speed. And we got Rabies on the left. So you can see our sheet damage, 73k. Very high. Tons of health. It's we're very healthy here. So I'll show you how it goes. Basically, we want to get our stacks up of our Feral Rage just so we have like a ton of movement speed. So look how quick we are now. Now that we have that, we're going to basically run around, try to gather some cows up. You hit them kind of once, and then you run away. And they will die in 1 hit. Trust me. That green thing, that's the debuff that your vines will do when they hit. You can see they'll just slowly die after 1 hit. And your archer's gonna be proccing lower resist when she's attacking, which is cool. And when that happens, they really take a lot of damage. So you can kind of like run in a circle around them, but usually 1 hit's enough, to be completely honest, at least for this map. And you'll notice your vines do die a lot, so make sure you're recasting them. And then also when your movement speed buff runs out, make sure you kind of get that back. One thing with this build though is like, even though yeah you're fully capped and you're you have a lot of health, you can get like really fucked by like getting surrounded, because you'll get like in like this weird like dodge block animation lock because the frames on the Druid or werewolf or whatever are like really bad. But as you can see, like 1 attack is usually all you need. Just make sure you keep an eye on your summons so you can always have your buffs. In Season 5 they'll be changing that, so your spirits won't be taking aggro, and I think the vines as well won't be taking aggro. Could be wrong about that, but I think I read that. So yeah, I mean it's really strong. There's really nothing wrong with this build. The only problem I see is on maps where the mobs don't kind of like clump up like in cows. You'll have some issues, especially if there's a lot of poison immunes. cows are very predictable mobs, so it would be nice to have like Enigma, I think, to be able to teleport and make our vines go where we want so they could debuff mobs. But I don't know if you can use Telly while you're a werewolf, so. Yeah, overall it's very strong build. See, that's one attack and everything there will die. They kind of just bleed out, which is really cool. But if you don't have room to kite and you're in a tight spot, it's kind of bad. Like I'll just sit here and fight, and you'll see. It can be not so good. And what I don't like about it is that like you can keep attacking, but you're not really doing anything, so it's kind of pointless. It just feels a little awkward compared to Paladin and other things. But you know, it's not an expensive build. If you don't have the faucets, it still does a lot of damage. You don't need the faucets. You don't need the bramble. Um, most of the gear here is like very very cheap. I mean, other than the plus skills here, venom grips are free. This thing is free. Spirit wards are free. Jalals are like pretty much free. Nobody ever wants those. I think I had like 6 Jalals in my bank from last season that I just couldn't sell for like Lem or something. Like nobody plays Druid. Um, so yeah, it's oh look at that an omen. You hate to see it when you're testing, right? There's a nice omen for it. Oh, and an ist. Wow. You always get the good luck when you don't need it. That's how it works. But yeah, like that's basically the whole map I did. It's pretty quick. There's a lot of options too in this build. It's not like you need specific items for it to work. So yeah, Poison Druid, pretty strong.